Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. We're joined by Stella, Fred Vasseur and Tim Goss. Now, Andrea, why don't we start with you? It's not a home race for McLaren, but it is a home race for you. You must have great memories of Imola, and I'm thinking of battles when you were at Ferrari between Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. Just tell us how special this one is for you.
Yeah, definitely a special venue. It's, like I work in Formula One, but I also have quite a lot of passion for Formula One, and Imola resonates with this passion, let me say. First of all, from a circuit point of view, the layout, the fast-flowing, a narrow track like you don't find many of, like Suzuka is another one. Quite unforgiving. As soon as you make a mistake, it can be quite penalizing. They're going up and downhill. So I think it's great for the drivers, it's great for the fans, and we do hope that this venue will keep staying as part of the calendar for the future, because this would be fantastic for Formula One. You talked about memories. And you mentioned the battles with Fernando Alonso. Yes, they were very interesting. And interestingly, they were opposite side in 2005, 2006. So it goes back in the years, but I would like to take this opportunity, especially for the younger fans, to go and take back a look at those two races, 2005, 2006, because that was, I think, in both cases, one of the closest racing we have had in dry conditions. For me, a couple of additional memories. 2003, this Imola, I'm particularly attached to that race because it was the season changer in the championship with Michael Schumacher. After a difficult start, we won here in Imola. I do remember very well that weekend, like if it was yesterday, and then the season changed after that success. And the final one is the winter testing of 2004. At the time, you could still take two cars of different seasons, and we had the 2003 and 2004 car here in Imola, and they were going around at the same time, one driven by Michael and one driven by Rubens, and we realized that we had a super car in hand for 2004, because the lap time and the consistency of that car was great. So a lot attached to this circuit, definitely from me. I would like to take advantage, if you allow me, and hopefully I'm not abusing of my time, as we talked about memories, to pay tribute to Fabrizio Borra. Fabrizio, I got to know him as Fernando Alonso's physio in 2010. Since then, we have shared a journey in Formula One. Has always been, since then, a great friend to me. Fabrizio was a person of dedication and generosity, a person that applied this dedication and generosity to the people, but also to the subject that he was the expert on. For me, I remember all the chats with Fabrizio. I learned a lot from him. He's been not only the physio and the reference for Fernando Alonso, but also Gianmarco Tamberi, a gold medal in high jump, and Marco Pantani in cycling, just to say the versatility of this individual. So it's a big loss. We are all very sad. We are all our thoughts with the family, and definitely I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to pay tribute to Fabrizio.
Oh, thank you for those kind words. Quick performance question. Now, you talked about a supercar in the 2004 Ferrari. Clearly, the 2025 McLaren can be talked about in a similar vein. Talk to us about Miami and the dominance you had there. Do you understand why you were so far ahead?
Talking about Miami, I think we are understanding the strengths of the MCL 39, which overall is a competitive car, but in some conditions I think it seems to be having a certain advantage to the rest of the field. These conditions materialize very well in Miami with the track layout, the speed range, the ambient temperatures. But we know very well that in some other kind of circuits like Saudi or Japan, it's a different story. Everything gets quite a lot tighter. So hopefully we will be able to retain this characteristic and this advantage over the course of the season. But I think this will require the car to be developed, to be upgraded, because we see that no one is waiting, no one is standing still. We see upgrades being brought trackside by our competitors. We do plan to upgrade the MCL 39 and try and if anything, possibly make the car even more suitable for a wider range of conditions and cornering speed.
Okay, look, final one from me. Oscar Piastri was sat where you are yesterday. He talked about marginal gains and the improvements he's made since last year. He said he's looked in every column of performance but gave no more specifics than that. Where have you seen Oscar improve?
Well, I think the most important improvement, if anything, is that Oscar has become a faster driver. I think when you are a faster driver, then you have more opportunity to process, more time to process, more bandwidth to process things. And this is true when you are in the car, and this is also true when you are outside the car, because like the speed is there, let's process all the other marginal gains that will then, at the end of the weekend, constitute the performance that you need to have this kind of results that he is having at the moment. In addition to that, over the winter, there's been a very specific amount of work that has gone has paid attention at different areas, has been quite holistic, and while Oscar is definitely the main one to praise for these developments, I would like to mention the team around Oscar, his engineers, and all the support from the factory with all the analysis, and even the team, Mark Webber, that works with Oscar and is definitely a great source of thoughts, insight, and identification of opportunities. So there's quite a lot of work behind this progress, but ultimately hats off to Oscar that has been able to capitalize.
Okay, thank you for that, Andrea. Fred, let's come to you next. Definitely a home race.
Shorter than Andrea.
Definitely a home race for Ferrari. Can we start with that? How much of a shot in the arm is it for the team just to see the Tifosi in their thousands?
Yeah, but it's always a special one, a bit like Monza. This one is different because it's even closer to the factory. We have a lot of people of the team living in Bologna or even closer from the track, and this is a special test for sure. But at the end of the day, we have to approach the race in the same way as the others and to try to do the best job that we can. It's perhaps an extra pressure, but we have to take this as a positive, as a push more than something else. And to see all the fans and the tifosi in the grandstand, it's for sure an extra motivation.
Has Lewis commented about it? Has he said, is he feeding off the support?
Yeah, but even this week, you know, from the factory, that from Monday onwards, that we had people outside of the factory in front of the gates. And this is a huge push for the drivers also. They were there the morning when the drivers arrive, and they were there waiting until the evening. That it means that it's... No, I want to take it, and I think the driver is doing the same, to take it as an extra motivation and a good push.
Let's talk performance now. You said yesterday that there have been occasions this year where you've left a Grand Prix feeling you haven't extracted the maximum from the car. Just how much potential does it have, and why is it proving so difficult to get that performance?
But I think except McLaren, who is flying, that we are all in the same situation, that sometimes we are in a more or less good shape and sometimes not. That if you have a look on our performance, I think in Jeddah in the race we were in a very strong position, that I think we did a very strong stints. And in Miami it was not the case at all. It means that we have to understand this and to do a better usage of the car and the tires if we want to be more consistent and to try to catch up a little bit on McLaren.
You mentioned Miami. It was a frustrating race for the team on many levels. You've had a bit of distance from it now. Let's start with the radio traffic. What lessons were learnt about that?
We don't have to learn something. That I took a decision. I think it was the good one, and then we explained the decision to the drivers. We checked the end, and the chapter was closed. The chapter is still open for you, but not for me.
All right, well, let's throw it forward to Monaco. Charles dominated that race last year. How much confidence do you go to the Principality with next week?
It's not a matter to be confident when you go somewhere. It's a matter to do a good job and to prepare very well the event. That we know that Monaco is a one-off, a special one. But the situation is a bit different compared to last year. That means that we have to do the best for Monaco, but exactly the same way that we are trying to do the best in Imola, and everybody will push for Monaco. That it's not that it's because it's a special one that you have to do more or better. That you know that we are all trying to push on every single event of the season. For sure, for Charles, it's a bit different because he's at home, but I think now 85% of the drivers are at home in Monaco. That it's not anymore the case of the past. But for sure that for Charles it's a special one, for Lewis it's a special one, but we don't have to pay too much attention to this. We just have to prepare the event in the best way.
Okay, Fred, thanks for that. Tim, let's come to you now. Welcome to the FIA press conference.
Nice
to be back at a team having done a stint at the FIA.
Yeah, no, it is. Don't laugh, Fred. No, it's my time at the FIA was fantastic, to be honest. It was a real pleasure and an honour actually to be helping with the teams to run the sport as well as kind of shaping the future of the sport. And it's a fantastic place to be. You get to learn a lot of what's going on. You feel that you're giving a lot back in terms of the direction of the sport, but you miss the passion and the competitiveness, and ultimately that kind of draws you back into a team. And there's nothing that actually beats being there, designing, developing a car, competing. Building a team and an organisation that can work cross disciplines, cross locations in our case. So it's ultimately it's the excitement and the passion of when the red lights go out. There's something that you're invested in as opposed to just watching.
You use the word competitiveness. This year's car is clearly a very good one. How much potential do you think it has? Certainly we learned a lot from last year. Upgrades that worked and didn't work. Learned a lot about how we worked together, how we made those choices, what characteristics were important, and went about the 2025 car in a slightly different way. We also recognised during 2024 that our race pace wasn't good enough. We were qualifying well, but spent our races, sort of defending as opposed to consolidating our position. And we built on those over the winter, and concentrated on providing a car that not only had a load improvement, but had a platform that the race engineers could access more effectively in terms of setup and controllability from the car, that allowed the drivers to get more of the operating envelope. And that in itself is not news to any Formula One team, but you have to try and get the balance of getting those characteristics right against ultimate load. And I think we learned a lot out of 2024 and early 2025, and reaped the rewards with this car. Quick one on Isaac Hadjar. You've worked with many drivers in your career. How impressed are you by what he's done so far this year?
Yeah, very impressed. That we've got two very young drivers. Two rookies. They're very capable coming out of Formula 2, but they have a lot to learn, just both in terms of the practicalities of going racing, but also how to get the most out of out of these cars. You don't just go and drive them. You know, you have to manage out laps in terms of preparing the car, the tyres. You have to manage tyres during a race, and I'd like to say we're experts at training rookies, but essentially that's one of our roles here in the Red Bull family, and we take a lot of care in trying to get it right and a lot of effort into it, and Isaac has really impressed us. You know, right from the start, he's picked up things quickly. He's been on the case from the start, and he's been quick. So put him up against Yuki, Yuki was beginning of the season was really on it. He had a really good winter, was really focused, driving particularly well, which is obviously why he got the call up. And Isaac was there with him right from the start. So no, very impressed.
Okay, Tim, thank you for that. Let's open this to the floor now. Who's got our first question? Ian, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Ian Parks, Racing News 365. Question for you, Andrea. Since McLaren pushed its way to the front, started winning races, won the Constructors' Championship last year, various rivals have made claims against the team as to why the performance is so strong, wing flexing, water cooling of the tyres, for example, but you've always been cleared. Do you draw any satisfaction from the fact that those rivals have yet been able to unlock the secrets of this year's McLaren?
Let's say I would like to adopt the angle of your question in trying to answer on this topic, which can be answered in different ways. Let's say for us it's good news when our rivals get their focus rather than on themselves onto some of the aspects that allegedly are present in our car, and that effectively they are not even present, and that certainly even if they were in let's say flexi wings, like a front wing deflection like everyone has, have nothing to do with the reason why McLaren is very competitive. So I hope that in the future there will be more of this kind of sagas, because it means that our rivals keep focusing on the wrong things, and this is for us just good news. It's just helping our quest.
Diretta Colombo Automato, a question for the three of you. What do you think of Carlos Sainz Sr.'s potential bid for the FIA presidency?
Who'd like to start with that? Fred, why don't you start?
I have a huge respect for Carlos Senior and Carlos Junior also, but Carlos Senior, I worked with him a couple of times in my life. But then I don't want to enter in position, and it's not my job to take position on the election. That I have a huge respect for him, but it's another matter.
Andrea?
To be honest, I don't have much to comment. I think it's a matter that has a lot of subtleties. What's important for me is that we have a good process, and this process will lead to the best interest of FIA, F1. It's very, very important that we have proper governance and great leadership from the institution that lead the sport.
Thank you. Tim, anything for you?
Yeah, from my side, I mean, obviously, I've got recent experience at the FIA. Everything I was involved with was kind of mainly outside of the presidential activities and the Senate. And what I can say is that, from my experience there, the governance side of it under Nicholas and Timalian Sporting and Francois Sicard and now Jan replacing me. That's a great team, and it is a very difficult job, but they do a really fantastic job of it. And not just going on their own. Sometimes you actually have to force things through, but at other times, most of the time, we tried to work very collaboratively with the teams. But on Carlos, I'm afraid I don't know him particularly well, so I can't really comment.
Okay, thanks to all three. Who's next?
Yeah, Umberto Zappelloni, a question for Andrea Stella. Andrea, during this year, there will be a moment in which you will give a team order to Oscar and Lando, or they will always be free to fight each other?
The matter of the internal competition between our two drivers is a matter that we face using our racing principles and approach. These principles have been put together not only by the team itself, but also with the contribution of the drivers. Definitely is very much based on the several good conversations that we have had as we have been going through this journey together. These principles and approach, which I'm not going to disclose just for a matter of protecting our IP, so far have worked very well. They would not be working so well if we didn't have two drivers like Oscar and Lando, that not only they are very fast on track, but they are also two great individuals. And I've seen this several times. I see this in the way they race. There may be situations in which we are challenged as a team, in which the internal competition gets very tight. We might have to give some direction from the pit wall. But, and actually internally, we don't even say if, we say when. Because the business is so complex, Formula One is so difficult that you will have this situation. But for me, what's important is that we stick with these principles and this approach, and that we react as a team in the most constructive way. Something that having Lando and Oscar on board makes me be quite confident that it will be the case.
Thank you for that. Over here.
Leo from Brazilian Grande Premio. Question for Andrea. McLaren has a good chance of winning both championships this year, but how do you plan to manage the performance as others, probably yourself too, will switch more and more to 2026 car?
I think the way we are managing this, to be honest, I don't expect this to be very different from what's happening in the other 9 teams. We are still definitely keeping interest and momentum on this year's car, because like I said before, we are not giving anything for granted. We need to improve the car, especially in some conditions, and we are planning to do so with some upgrades. At the same time, there's so much to do on the 2026 that pretty much from the 2nd of January, we were working on the 2026 car. At the moment, we've been trying to use the resources we have in the most logical and efficient way, and at some stage, we will shift our focus entirely on 2026. But definitely, even if the championships are in a good position, we have not given up the attention on this year's car.
Thank you. Yep.
Carlo Platella, Formula Passion. Andrea, you remember the 2004 test when you realized how big was the step forward compared to the previous year. Did you have a similar feeling this year in any particular situation?
You know, like we need to go back to 2004. That car won 12 of the first 13 races with Michael, and the only one that we lost was because Michael crashed with Montoya under the tunnel in Monaco, while Montoya was actually 1 lap down during a safety car. Otherwise, likely we would have won 13 out of 13. So that's a reference that I'm actually often using, even to motivate myself, like that's where we want to be. But I don't think this will happen this year. So there is hard work ahead of us to make sure that this happens in the years to come. But I think we are a few steps behind compared to those kind of references.
Thank you. Back.
Yeah, Luke Smith from The Atletico. Andrea, another one for you. Tim, afraid if you want to chip in, by all means do. Monaco going to mandatory 2 stops from next week. How much extra effort has had to go into preparations for that? How much of a change do you think it's actually going to make on the race? And how many curveballs do you think it could provide for the field?
In fairness, like you approach it in the same way, with the same tools, with the same kind of thought process, compared to how you would approach an event, let's say. Simply, you just have more constraints, so you have to make some adaptations in terms of how you approach this. But in itself, I think it's interesting. After the race we had last year, a little bit of change is an interesting aspect. So I welcome this kind of changes. Actually, I think it will be more tricky in wet conditions. So for dry conditions, I think it's just interesting. For wet could create some situations that may be a little awkward, but we look forward to it. And like I say, I welcome the change.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably echo that. It's going to change things, but you know, we just work through it with our normal strategy tools. It's just another, for us, I think it's just another constraint. Hopefully, you know, the main purpose of it is to make the race more exciting. You know, what we don't want is one stops and processions, and I welcome the effort that went into it. There were lots and lots of things that were suggested. We've been talking about it for many years, and I think really, if it does work out as success, then congratulations to, you know, the teams, the FIA and Formula One that worked together to come up with the package and the idea.
Okay, thank you for that. Johnny?
Jono from the race. To Andrea, on the advantage your team's got in terms of managing tyre temperatures, there seems to be a kind of obsession with people finding a magic bullet solution. But would it be fair to say there's lots of elements that combine on this, you know, downforce, suspension kinematics, all that sort of thing? And if that is the case, does that mean it will take your rivals quite a while to catch up because they've got to deal with many aspects?
I would like to give the wrong answer here, so that I, put all our rivals down the wrong route. The only thing I can say is that for me, you know, over the years in Formula One, I've learned that you have to focus on yourself and focus on the fundamentals. I think when you get too distracted by what the others are doing, it's normally an alarm bell that should ring in your factory and should remind you to go back to the basics. So I'm afraid I've given the right answer, so I've helped now my competitors, but, you know, I'm intellectually honest, so I can't really give the wrong answer tactically.
Thanks for that. Where are we going next? Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, Adam Cooper, everyone, for all three of you on the Monaco tyre rule again. If it works, would you like to see it introduced at other circuits in the future, maybe a bit like a joker, maybe 6 times a year, like we have 6 sprint races, or is it purely a one-off for that track?
Fred, you start.
So far, it's a one-off. In the other end, I didn't feel that last year the race was not exciting for me. It was a good one. Let's see after Monaco, because that strategy in Monaco, it's very difficult because it's also driven by the safety car, and so it will be 2 times more difficult for this. The downside could be also that if you have an early safety car, that I think everybody will jump into the pit lane, and the pit lane is very narrow. It can be an issue. But let's do Monaco like this, that I think we were clever enough to do the experimentation, and we will see after Monaco what we can do and where we can improve the situation.
I think the important thing here is to keep it on the cusp of a 1-2 stop. What we want is varied strategies. As soon as you force it and everyone's doing a 2-stop, then it's going to take away a lot of excitement. And some of the best races we've had is where someone's hanging out a 1-stop, someone goes for the 2-stop and is reeling them in over the final kind of 15 laps, second a lap or more, and then their tyre dead goes, and then you get to the final 2-3 laps with 2 cars that are going head for head for the win. So I think it's if you force it on the 2-stop, it's not going to work, I think.
Andrea, anything to add? Agree? Okay. Next, please. Yep.
Charles Richards, The Guardian. This question for Fred. Fred, I've just been out in the fan zone talking to Ferrari fans, all of whom are terribly excited about seeing Lewis in a... I'm over here. I'm very short. They're all terribly excited about seeing Lewis for the first time in a Ferrari. You mentioned the pressure. I'm just wondering, there's the enthusiasm and there's a huge amount of expectation for the first time in seeing him in a home race. Is this something he's thriving on? Is he aware of it? Is it something that he's enjoying? I mean, you say you just treat it like any other race, but it's quite hard to do that, I would have thought.
No, for sure, we want to have the same approach this weekend than the other one, because the motivation is always the same. But we can also see even from the garage or from the factory that the tifosi in front of us and the fact that they are all mega motivated, committed on Formula One and the project, and they can be sure that we will push until the end to get the best, to do the best. But we all are convinced of this, and that it's not absolutely not the issue. I think Andrea was in the same position in the past, that you can feel it from, I told you before, from the factory the week before, that you have already a lot of people around the factory, that it was like this all the week. It was like this yesterday in the fan forum, as you said, and but let's take it as an extra motivation and the positive side of this, and I have my personal feeling on the Lewis position today is that he's taking it as a huge opportunity. That, like, I don't want to say a dream, but it's a huge opportunity, if you think about this, to race in front of the tifosi with this enthusiasm and honesty, that we are all taking it like this.
Fred, thank you for that. Thank you to all three of you. We will leave it there. Best of luck for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, we have listened to team principal press conference. Like on the other press conferences, I'm not going to comment anything about also on this press conference. Just we will ask you to like the video, comment it, and subscribe to the channel. And also, I want to say that we will have also the driver interviews, post-qualifying and also post-race press conferences, and also post-qualifying interviews and the post-race interviews. Just don't forget to follow the channel, like the videos, and comment them.